My friend sort of approached me and was like, "Hey, I just want to let you know that this person, who's my other friend, has been saying these things about you and sort of lying behind your back." And it really upset me, and I wasn't sure whether or not to confront them or whatnot. And I was so angry about it just because to my face they were acting like we were totally cool. And I think it was that night at like 2 in the morning. I was standing in my kitchen, like in my underwear with my guitar, just like messing around, and I remember the situation, and I remember just getting so angry, and it's almost like I blacked out, and I just started like singing, and most of the song just kind of spilled out from there. I thought it was funny people sort of jumping to conclusions on who they think that the song is about, and them thinking that I sort of wrote and released it within a week. It's kind of ridiculous. I mean, there's literally proof on my Instagram that I wrote it 2.5 years ago, and nobody will ever know who the song is about. But it is funny to sort of see the speculation on who people think it's about. I've done my best to sort of make it clear that it's not about anyone in particular that they might think it is, but people are gonna think what they're gonna think. So they told me all the things that you said, running all over my name. Whoa. I grew up in San Diego, and everyone kind of knew each other, and I think that when somebody spreads something that's false and they know it's false, it can be damaging for so many reasons. And I think that you go through your day like seeing people, and all you can think is like, what do they think? What have they heard? What do they know? What do they not know? Kind of thing. And I think that that's really no way to live in, like that sort of fear. And you're acting oh so innocent, like I'm the only one to blame. I think we all have our faults, and it's easy to sort of only see everybody else's faults, and avoid sort of your own thing. But it is funny to me when people play dumb. I've had situations where I've called somebody out on something that I knew was factual that they were saying, and they just completely play dumb. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, you do. Like, I know you do. And so it's like the whole sort of acting innocent thing is funny when you like have proof of something. You've been lying to yourself. You lie to everyone else. Only thinking about yourself. Darling, what the hell? It's not like you don't care about these people. Even if you're mad at somebody or upset at somebody for doing something, the reason you're hurt is because you care about them and you care about what they say and what they think about you. And I think that's the thing that's confusing about it. Like the darling, what the hell is like, I love you, why are you doing this to me kind of thing. I know what you say about me. I hope that it makes you happy. You can't seem to get me off your mind. Oh, you're claiming to like not like me or say all these things about me, but you can't get me off your mind. It's very interesting that like clearly I'm getting to you in some way, and clearly you care, because if you truly didn't care, you wouldn't be saying what you're saying. And I just think it's interesting. Like it's kind of I hope that it makes you happy is kind of has a double meaning. The first meaning is like, I hope this makes you happy. Like, I hope you feel better about yourself after what you're doing. And then it's also like, I hope it makes you happy, like realizing that like you can't get me off your mind. I know you're lying through your teeth. You told them the lies that you told me. I've had enough of it this time. Oh, you do this to everybody. It's not just to me. Like you'll throw this person under the bus if it makes you look better or whatnot. And I think like recognizing that toxicity and that I've had enough of it this time, just sort of realizing, okay, this is a pattern. This person is not actively trying to change, and they're trying to hurt me. And so like setting that boundary, it's really more of a internal thing than an external thing. I mean, obviously it's like, you probably won't hang out with that person, but more so like mentally, being like, okay, I need to separate myself from this person and recognize the toxicity, and that, it's not worth it to sort of get caught up in worrying about this or in getting upset about this, when it's like, this is just who they are, and I've had enough at this time, and I'm gonna set that boundary and take a step back in whatever way that looks for you. So you can lie. Go ahead and try. It won't work this time. I'll kiss your ass good. Bye, 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 bye. I'll kiss your ass goodbye. That section was actually really funny. I remember when I was writing it and I sort of surprised myself with it because I was just going with it. And I was like, so you can la, 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 la. And then I was like, go ahead and try. And I was like, oh shoot. And then the third one, I was like, it won't work this time. And I was like, what the hell? And then I just like came out. I was like, I'll kiss your ass good. Bye, bye, bye. And I was like, oh my God. Like, it was just like that moment. It felt so nice to like say that. And again, it's like, it's the real thing. It's like, I'll kiss your ass goodbye. Like, I'm not going to really put up with this. It's like, bye. Like, I don't really, it's not worth it for me if you're going to be like toxic and lie and manipulative and all that stuff. So it definitely felt good to say, kiss your ass goodbye. So you're telling them it's all my fault. You're the victim this time. Whoa. I've had people I know admit that like when they feel powerless in a situation, the only power they can have is to sort of lean into being the victim. And by the way, disclaimer, I'm not saying that there aren't people who are the victims of things in situations. That's absolutely not what I'm saying. But it's more so when somebody is getting attention and validation by sort of playing the victim. And you wanna make it seem like it's your call. You're acting like everything's fine. One of my favorite lines in the song, because it's like, I know what you say about me in the chorus is like, they told me what you said, like I know, but you're acting like everything's fine because you have no idea that I know. And I think that like, it's so easy for people to sort of flip and pretend to be your best friend. And in ways, I'm sure they're convinced that they are, but in reality, they will throw you under the bus the second it benefits them. And it's like, you can't just do that and then come around here and act like we're totally cool. I know what you say about me. Oh, you can't get me off your mind. I ultimately did confront this person, and we actually had a really great conversation afterwards about, it. And we were able to like move past it because I kind of put my foot down and like really had a tough conversation. I think that it's so easy to sort of avoid that nowadays, and people really like taboo things. People are afraid to talk about things. If you do have an issue with somebody, instead of like getting out that anger by sort of going around and tarnishing their name and maybe embellishing a little bit and leaning into it, it's like maybe at first you actually try to reconcile with that person and explain to them why you're hurting and where you're coming from. Because I literally, like every single time I actually go, okay, you know what? I really need to just speak with this person either face to face or on the phone. The problem's like 99.9% resolved. That's probably my best advice is like, talk it out. Even though it sucks and it's so scary to do, if you talk to somebody and you're honest and vulnerable, all you can hope for is that that's met with honesty and vulnerability, and then hopefully you can move forward.